Today, we're diving into the absolutely unbelievable story of Harrison Okene. This is a man who survived for nearly 3 days, trapped in a sunken ship at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. His will to live just defied all logic, and this is how it all went down.
So just try to put yourself in this situation. It's a normal morning. You're a 29-year-old ship's cook, Harrison Okene. You get up, and in an instant, you go from the start of a regular day to a desperate fight for your life.
So let's start with that plunge into darkness. This wasn't some slow leak or a gradual problem. No, this was a sudden, violent capsize that changed absolutely everything in just a few minutes. And what's just crazy is how fast this all happened. I mean, we're talking 5 minutes. In just 5 minutes, the tugboat Jascon 4 went from being a regular vessel to a tomb on the ocean floor. All it took was a single rogue wave to flip the boat and send it plummeting 100 feet into total darkness. Now here's where fate, or just sheer random luck, steps in. A lot of his 11 crewmates were trapped behind doors that were locked, for security against pirates. But Harrison? He was out in the open, and he got hit by this wall of water that just blasted him down a hallway and into the ship's toilet. And this is his world now, a tiny 4-foot square air pocket. He's all alone, wearing nothing but his boxer shorts, surrounded by freezing water and absolute total darkness. He's the only one left, but his chances of survival, well, they look basically impossible.
So, you have to ask, how on earth does a person even begin to survive this? This is where the story gets even crazier, and it shifts from just a disaster story into an incredible lesson in physics, human physiology, and just pure endurance.
60 hours. That's 2.5 days. Just think about that for a second. Waiting. Listening to the sounds of the ocean, the sounds of his crewmates' bodies bumping against the walls, all with no clue if rescue was even possible.
So, yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? Because literally everything about his situation should have been fatal. I mean, he should have died within hours, if not minutes. Let's actually break down the science of how he beat these insane odds.
Okay, so he's up against 3 major killers down there, and honestly, any single one of them should have been enough. So let's tackle them one by one, starting with the most immediate threat, the cold.
The water at that depth is bone-chillingly cold. To have any chance, he had to get out of it. And this is where his mind is just incredible. With amazing calm, Harrison found some tools in the dark, managed to pull paneling off a wall, and built himself a small platform to get his body out of the water. That simple act saved precious body heat.
And this next part is where some basic physics literally saved his life. You see, at sea level, that tiny air pocket would have run out of oxygen in a few hours, tops. But 100 feet down, the massive water pressure compressed the air, basically cramming 4 times the amount of oxygen into the same small space. This gave him just enough to last for nearly 3 days. It's just wild.
Okay, so he's got oxygen. Problem solved, right? Not exactly. There was another, more sinister problem. A silent killer was building up all around him. With every breath out, he was filling his tiny sanctuary with toxic carbon dioxide. This should have poisoned him long before the oxygen ever ran out. And here's another one of those just unbelievable lucky breaks. His own movement saved him. As Harrison shifted around in the dark, splashing in the water below his makeshift platform, he was accidentally churning the surface. This simple action helped the water absorb the toxic CO2 out of the air, basically scrubbing it clean and keeping the levels just below fatal. So after nearly 3 days of this constant fight for his life, the story takes another huge, dramatic turn. A team finally arrives at the wreck. But let's be really clear about what their mission was. They were not a rescue team. After 60 hours, finding survivors was considered impossible. Their job was the grim, awful task of body recovery. The visibility was near zero, and the wreck was just a confusing maze of upside-down hallways. So imagine you're that diver. You're swimming through this sunken ship, expecting to find only death, when out of the murky blackness, a hand reaches out and touches you. The diver later said he thought it was just another body, until the hand squeezed his. And that's the moment. That's the call that goes out over the radio from the dive supervisor. You can just imagine the absolute shock and disbelief in that voice. He's alive! He's alive! Against all odds, they'd found a survivor.
You'd think the story's over, right? He's been found, but no. Harrison's ordeal was far from finished. Getting him out alive presented one last and equally deadly scientific challenge.
See, he couldn't just swim up to the surface. After 60 hours at that depth and pressure, his entire body was saturated with nitrogen gas. A quick trip up would cause that nitrogen to bubble up in his blood and tissues. It's a condition called the bends, and it would be agonizing and absolutely fatal. So this rescue becomes this incredibly delicate, careful operation. First, they had to somehow get a diving helmet onto a delirious Harrison. Then, after bringing him up, he was immediately rushed into a decompression chamber. He had to spend another 2.5 days in there, letting his body slowly and safely readjust to normal surface pressure.
Physically, and this is just a testament to the skill of that rescue team, Harrison made a full recovery. But the psychological scars, well, they ran deep. He suffered from severe PTSD, waking up screaming, believing he was still trapped down there in the dark.
And honestly, who could blame him? Today, he still works as a cook, but he does it firmly on dry land. He has, very understandably, sworn off the sea for good. His survival is nothing short of a miracle, but it was one that came with a heavy personal price. And that kind of leaves us with this one last thought. Beyond all the lucky physics and the dramatic rescue, there's the human element. What does it take for a person to stay calm enough to build a platform in the dark, to endure for 60 hours, to just survive the impossible? It's really an incredible story of resilience when faced with the absolute worst.